still promoting Sedition Day. Somebody on Twitter says Happy Sedition Day. Other people are saying, hey, maybe it should be called Eugene Goodman Day or Capitol Police Day. Capitol Police Day, that's a good one. Matthew Sowell tweets, I thought Christmas was National Lie to Your Children Day. Or how about Anti-Fascist Day? Anyhow, we'll continue that conversation in a minute. With us right now, however, I'm very pleased, is Tess Owen, senior reporter with Vice News, who covers extremists, extremists with guns at Vice.com. Tess's Twitter handle is Miss Tess Owen, MISSTESSOWEN, or at Vice News. And her most recent piece is titled, The Proud Boys Changed Tactics After January 6th. We tracked their activity. So, Tess, welcome to the program. Tell us what's up with these white supremacist, white ethno-nationalist groups, and you know, are the Proud Boys unique in this regard? Actually, it's probably more of a follow-up question. Let's start at the beginning. The Proud Boys changed their tactics. Tell us about this.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you know, obviously Proud Boys were under a lot of scrutiny after January 6th. That was kind of when they became a household name. And I think to date, there are over 50 members of the group who have been charged in connection with the Capitol riot. And, you know, there was this wave of charges. There was rumors of infighting within the group. There was this bombshell report that came out saying that their leader, Enrique Tarrio, had at one point been a, quote, prolific law enforcement informant. And all of this was kind of prompting some speculation that maybe this was the beginning of the end for the Proud Boys. There was a sort of a lull in activity kind of a few months after January 6th. And then around the spring, I started noticing just sort of scattered reports kind of surfacing in local newspapers or on social media of, you know, Proud Boys in uniform showing up to kind of right-wing events around a range of issues like guns or abortion or masks, COVID-19 restrictions. And it seemed like they were organizing in much smaller numbers and on a much sort of quieter level. And so I started logging these appearances. Every time they showed up in uniform somewhere, I tracked it in a spreadsheet.
Excuse me, in uniform, what do you mean?
Oh, so the Proud Boys, they have a uniform, or they call it their colors, which is the gold and black uniform. Sometimes their insignia is a rooster. Mm-hmm. So they'll show up with their polos or something saying Proud Boys on them.
Right.
And so what became increasingly clear is that they were kind of eschewing these large-scale rallies that they've been known for in, you know, the years leading up to January 6th, and we're still like sort of building alliances and trying to drum up grassroots, ground-level support among conservatives. Mm-hmm. And this was troubling to me because it signaled that, you know, told us a lot about their reach and resilience, and also attitudes towards the Proud Boys, despite the fact that they have been known for engaging in violence, very well known for engaging in violence, and that, you know, including January 6th.
You know, from the 19-teens, when Birth of a Nation came out, the recruiting movie for the Klan, and we saw an explosion in Klan membership, until the 1950s, it had become somewhat respectable in white middle America circles to be a member of the Klan. I mean, it became unrespectable again after the 1960s, or respectable. Is that the sort of arc that you think that they're trying to follow? That they're trying? I mean, I grew up in Lansing, Michigan. I mean, and I was born in 1951. I remember politicians in Michigan being identified as Klan members. Robert Byrd, you know, who was in the United States Senate, had been a Grand Master, Grand Wizard of the Klan, or something like that. And then it became unacceptable. But do you think that they're trying to go through that arc that the Klan went through in the 30s, 40s, 50s of, hey, we're part of a respectable society, we're just the fringe?
It's a great question. I mean, we logged 114 uniformed appearances in 73 cities in 24 states over the last year. And in those appearances, we found scant evidence that they encountered very little pushback when they did show up, when they tried to, attach themselves to right-wing causes, when they showed up at school board meetings or city council meetings or anti-vax rallies, that they seemed to be ingratiating themselves and actually having some success. And on top of these kind of uniformed appearances, they are also trying to kind of whitewash their reputation by doing kind of, quote, community activism. So we also kind of logged some examples where they organized an Easter egg hunt out in a suburb of Chicago, or they helped, they organized toy drives around Christmas, or, just a range of these kinds of Good Samaritan activities that kind of, again, just sort of whitewash their reputation a little bit and help them foster those alliances.
What is the I mean, if you were to ask what is the core belief system of the Ku Klux Klan, I think everybody would simply say, white supremacy. What is the core? The Proud Boys have been, they've been seen as brawlers, they've been seen as bigots, they've been seen as men who have masculinity insecurity issues. They've been seen as guys who are into guns. I mean, it's kind of scattered in terms of public perception or understanding of who they are and what they're all about. Is there a single coherent thread that runs through them, or have they coalesced around a particular issue?
The thing, I like to call them neo-fascist, or a neo-fascist street fighting gang is kind of how I tend to refer to them. And, they do have They occupy this sort of very uneasy position where they, on one side, have built alliances and allies within, quote, legitimate political circles, and on the other end of the spectrum, they are showing up and rubbing shoulders with Nazis, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists. And they have this sort of plausible deniability where they can say, oh, we have non-white members, so we can't be white supremacists. And I think this is kind of part of their, this is sort of part of the strategy that makes them difficult to pin down. And, they can say that anyone who's calling them a white nationalist is that they're just sort of buying into, liberal hype. Right. So I think they're quite opportunistic and quite clever in terms of how they brand and promote themselves. And that is also what makes them so dangerous. Would
it be a reasonable analogy, or even could it be a template, that they are very much like, or trying to be very much like, the early brown shirts, the brown shirts from 1923 to 1934, I think it was, when they got absorbed into the military. This was a volunteer force that used to go around and basically beat up people on behalf of Hitler.
That's definitely a comparison that's been made, and I think that does definitely hold water. I mean, there's also been comparisons made to other nationalist militant groups around the world who, again, use community activism to ingratiate themselves with local community and build those levels of support. And so, I mean, their strategy in terms of going local this year is also in keeping with the broader trend of what we've seen the far right overall, and the GOP, is that they are now kind of taking all of that energy that we saw at the Capitol, that anger and energy, and we've seen that play out now in city council meetings and school board meetings and in the suburbs and small towns. So I think that's also something to keep in mind.
The Democratic Party had been, which was the party, sadly, of the Confederacy, up until 1965 or 64, when we got the Civil Rights Act and then the Voting Rights Act. The Democratic Party had been fairly well infiltrated during, again, going back to that period of the 1920s through the 1950s, by the Klan, openly infiltrated by the Klan. Do you see that kind of dynamic playing out between the Proud Boys and the institutional Republican Party?
Certainly, in some areas, yes. I mean, in Oregon, there is a local GOP group, official GOP group, who this year hired the Proud Boys to be their security. I mean, that's happened in several other occasions. There's been an issue in Clark County, Nevada, with Proud Boys kind of trying to hijack the local organization there. They've certainly rubbed shoulders with, more of the kind of fringier members of Congress. They have, strong alliances with Roger Stone, who, as we know, is a former Trump advisor. Roger Stone's been described as their godfather, and he has hung out with them on numerous occasions and taking photos with them. So, yes, I mean, there is definitely a relationship there, and that's no way an exaggeration.
The argument that was made in the 20s through the 50s about the Klan was that as they were, quote, becoming respectable, as they were integrating themselves into the Democratic Party, they were less dangerous. They were less well, dangerous, I guess is the best word. Is that rationalization being used among Republicans who are embracing these guys that, hey, you know, if we bring them in, maybe we can control them, they'll be a little more respectable, they'll stop beating people up or whatever?
I haven't seen that rationale necessarily, but the one thing that was interesting in terms of when we were doing this project was that we were only counting uniformed appearances. Mm-hmm. And there are plenty of examples. I mean, for example, on January 6th, the Proud Boys went, quote, incognito, and they were told to not wear their uniforms by their leaders so that they could blend into the crowd. Mm-hmm. And we found other examples where, again, chapter leaders were telling their members, okay, today we don't wear a uniform. You're going to show up to this particular event that could get messy. Don't wear your uniform. There's been a number of very violent acts, like a lot of political violence involving far-right actors around LA. And with respect to Proud Boys, and again, they're not wearing uniforms. And so what we've counted is how they're trying to whitewash their reputation of being perceived, but, you know, how they want the group to be perceived. But I think increasingly that's just an illusion, and what they get up to when they're not in uniform, it tells a different story about, you know, their violent proclivities.
Yeah. We just have a half a minute left. We're talking with Tess Owen, senior reporter at Vice News. Tess, how is the Justice Department responding to this?
I mean, the Justice Department, in terms of the overall threat of the far right, I mean, they have been pretty clear that you know, when people try and place equal blame, for example, when people say, oh, what about Antifa? I mean, the Justice Department's own data speaks for itself, that the threat of the far right poses the biggest threat to national security, and that this is constituting like a large number of their cases today. So, I mean, that's one thing. But yeah, overall, we're going to have to see where the cases go. I mean, in terms of the January 6th, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tess Owen, you can read her report. It's brilliant. The Proud Boys changed tactics after January 6th. We tracked their activities. The title over at Vice.com. Ms. Tess Owen on Twitter. Tess, thanks so much for dropping by. Great talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.